Welcome to the Life Unscripted podcast with Rosabel, the place where genuine conversations meet inspiring stories, personal growth, and a dash of humor. I'm Rosabel, your host, inviting you to embrace life's unpredictable journey. Celebrate your unique story and find joy in everyday moments. Get comfortable, stay curious, and let's explore together. Unscripted, unapologetic, and unstoppable. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Life Unscripted podcast with Rosabel. Today, I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Ellie. Ellie, how do you say your last name?
Laliberté.
Laliberté. Yeah, I assume that's why I didn't want to try to pronounce it.
That's okay.
This is Rosabel, your host, and today I'm so excited to bring you into a heartfelt, deeply reflective conversation that I know it will resonate with many of you who are perhaps navigating growth, healing, and self-discovery. So, Ellie, you're a writer, spiritual guide, and she's also the author of Letters from You to You, Awaken Your Power Through Conversations with Your Higher Self. In this beautiful written book, Ellie shares 21 intimate letters written from the voice of our inner being, our higher self, guiding us through emotional triggers, detachments, grief, and so much more. Now, before we jump in, I want to say, I want to let you know I did read at least the first 3 letters, the one that talks about time, emotional trigger, and the unknown. Let me tell you, it truly spoke to me. Now, each one felt like a gentle mirror reflecting back truths, and I've sensed that perhaps, maybe haven't yet named, but this is the kind of book that, this is just my opinion, that invites you to pause, breathe, and listen. So, Ellie, welcome to the Life Unscripted podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Really exciting for this
Awesome.
conversation.
Me too. So let's start from the heart. What inspired you to write Letters from You to You, and how did you come to write it in the voice of the inner being?
Yeah, so I was inspired actually in a meditation. I didn't expect to write a second book. So this is my second one. I wrote my first one when I was about 27, 28. And I didn't know that I was going to write another one. And I just went into meditation back in 2023 in December. And I actually wanted to just let go of everything. I was in a transition back then where I was letting go of a business that I've had for the last 7 years, and so it was very difficult on me, and I had kind of like another level of surrender to go through. And so those 2 weeks, and it was Christmas time, and I didn't have a lot of Christmas parties or whatever. So I had really decided to sit down with myself, and I was going to be alone for the next 2 weeks. So it was going to be kind of like a retreat for myself, and being in the unknown and being really in stillness. And then maybe like the second meditation that I did, it was a silent meditation. I had this clear insight that I had to write a second book, and I had the title of the book that was very clear, and the way that it would be written with the letters. And so that was a surprise to me. So that was my first inspiration to write it. And I sat down and I just said, okay, I will go with the flow and see what comes out, and started with the intro, and then it just flowed. It just flowed. And I wrote the book within a month, and it was clearly channeled the entire time. And I know that I was at a space where I was like an empty vessel, that I could really, really receive some deeper understandings, and just, yeah, I felt like it was a really magical experience. It was also very triggering for myself too, but it was also very beautiful and, yeah, heartwarming to be connected that deeply to my higher self while I was writing this. Yeah. So
That is awesome. Now, did you the book, when it came out, when did you publish it? Is it pretty new?
yeah. So I published it. I wrote it in 2023, so at the end of 2023, and then I found a publisher. I aligned with a beautiful publisher back in April of 2024, and then the book was released. Everything was published and out in August of 2024. Yeah.
Very good, very good. Now, you do talk, it seems like you talk a lot about the difference between the default self and the inner being.
Yeah.
For listeners who might be new to this, how would you describe what it means to live from that inner being?
Yeah. So in my introduction, actually, I tell a little bit about my story of how I was able to integrate my authentic self or my inner being fully within me. And I don't ask people to do this, but it is a very powerful way. It was a powerful way for me to be able to distinguish between the two. So we do have a default self and we have an authentic self. That's how we're going to say the two. You can call it ego as well. And then the other part, you can call it higher self. And for a long time, for me, it was difficult to integrate and be in the energy of my authentic self because I didn't know, like I said, how to differentiate the two all that well. And at one point I was, and I want to share that story that is in my intro so that people kind of know where it comes from. But at one point I was taking this program, this coaching program, and the coaches recommended that we find a name for our authentic self. So my initial name is Michelle, and I decided to call myself Ellie. So to call my authentic self Ellie because I love the name and it resonated with me because it meant in ancient Greek, it meant shining light. So I thought that my authentic side, my higher self was a shining light. And that is from where I wanted to live my life from that energy. So that changed so much for me because now I kind of knew like if I was being in my default self, I was being in my Michelle self. So I was like, who am I being right now? If I'm reacting to something or whatever is going on where I'm feeling anxiety or, whatever you want to call it, like as a struggle that you're facing a situation, it would be really easy for me to say like, am I being Michelle right now or am I being Ellie? And so if I was being Michelle, I could have that perspective, that kind of like witness consciousness perspective of being able to shift my energy really quickly and go back into Ellie. So yeah, from these letters, what is happening is that it is that part of you that is speaking directly to you. And it's just showing you how that default self is the self that you've grown up in, and the little kid that you've been raised to believe certain things and imitate the caregivers that you had and just the conditioned self, really. Basically, that is the ego, the personality that is all constructed by the ego. And so the authentic self and the higher self is that place within you. You can say that you're connected to your heart and your pure love that is always there to listen to you and to hold space for yourself and have self-compassion and just help you navigate this world with a more impersonal energy as well. So, the ego is more personal. So everybody's taking everything personal. They think that people and things belong to them. And then your other authentic self is more a detached self, a place where you find peace and you find true love and you find, um, the impersonal life that you're living with that energy.
Now, with that being said, do you think I'm not going to say automatically, but do we live between the two of them or do people tend to live more, geared towards, because I like the higher, your true self. Is it the true self of
The authentic self,
the
inner
authentic
being,
self?
whatever you
I
want to
like
call
that one. Whatever, how you describe it, I like it. And I feel like I want to live like, sounds like me, like I
it.
like that peace and that. So, but I wonder if we tend to go back and forth. Is that what or is it, or you are either on one or the other?
Well, no, absolutely. We're going to be going back and forth. And at the beginning, your dominant is in your ego energy for sure. Your default self, that's the dominant energy, unfortunately, because it's been conditioned inside of us since we were like, an infant.
Little.
So yeah, it's very, very difficult to get out of that energy. But at one point you become used to because you practice enough or you do have to have the willpower to step into your authentic self every single day of your life.
Yes.
Um,
I
if you
wonder
don't
if
do that,
going through, I wonder if going through trauma or going through certain things in life perhaps triggers you to go that. Because I wonder,
yes,
like, in my own
absolutely.
case.
Absolutely. So, life brings us circumstances that are very unpleasant and, contrast experience for us to remember who we are. We don't have a choice to go through these contrasts. If we want to always avoid these contrasts, then we don't know how to evolve and we stay in ignorance and then we're still suffering, but we're dominantly in that ego and default self and really in the victim consciousness. And so we just continue to blame everything outside of us and we don't take responsibility for, to see that energy that is always the ego that is always like it's a hijacking our minds. That's
Yes.
basically what the ego does, right? So yeah, it's a balance between like you have to go through that darkness to be able to receive the light. Obviously, the dark night of the soul, everybody should be going down that road at one
Right.
point, and there's levels as well. But yeah, contrast is important. It's important. And
Yes.
at one point, when you get used to understand that the contrast is important, you get into an impersonal energy where you see that contrast as gifts for your life. And you understand that, it hurts less because now you can perceive the contrast in a different light. You're perceiving that contrast as I'm just updating, I'm upgrading my energy. I'm getting closer to my higher self every time that I'm going through something that is very uncomfortable and painful. I'm getting
Mm.
closer when you can embrace it,
Absolutely.
when you can embrace it.
That is so, so interesting. Another thing I noticed reading in your book, especially on that letter about emotional triggers, I noticed how soft and loving the inner being's voice is, but
Mhm.
at the same time, it's firm.
Yes.
There's such honesty there. I found myself pausing and kind of rereading. It almost like it literally, like I read, I'm like, I couldn't keep on going until, like, hold on, let me, and then go back again, rereading, realizing how often we react, from pain instead of presence.
Mhm.
So, in that case, what advice would you give to someone who wants to respond from their inner being instead of the wounded self, but still feels overwhelmed in the moment?
Yeah, so, it's not wrong to react from the ego, I would say, and the wounded self, because, like I said, we've been conditioned for so long that it's not easy to get out of that energy. Although you may react in the moment, but it's to start looking at the reaction in the moment and not, just going on a tantrum and attaching yourself to the reaction and then to the trigger and then just like being in that energy for like, I don't know, days and just, just being addicted to the trigger per se. You want to start when you're reacting, you want to start being able to become the witness automatically. So, what witness consciousness is just basically you're observing the mind, you're observing the thought, observing the emotion from a place of, from the in an impersonal place. Okay. And
Like
so,
non-judgmental, kind of like when we
non-judgmental.
meditate. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the same thing. It's really funny, but when you're meditating and you're seeing all of these thoughts going in your mind, it's not about
Yeah.
shutting them off. It'd be nice to
Right.
be able to shut them off completely, but it's really about being that witness and just looking at them and not getting involved in them. And so not identifying with them. So it's the same thing when you're in conversation with someone and let's say someone triggers you and you react, then you want to do the same exercise in that moment. Some people, and this is where the challenge is. If you're in a conversation or a heated conversation with someone and that
Yes.
person wants you to react, right? Because this is what happens
Yes.
often. The other person wants to trigger you. They want to have that. They want to play that game of like, I know I'm right and I want you to react to my righteousness right now because this is like what is fueling me. It's the ego that's doing that, right? So sometimes it can happen that the person is speaking to you and it's wanting to have a reaction from you. If you react in the moment and you look at your reaction and you observe that you have to step back and then take some time for yourself to go and look at where does that trigger come from, it's okay that you do so. The other person might be upset because you're not participating in their own reaction, in their game, in their kind of like emotional state that they're into. But you have to respect yourself and take that space because you're actually giving them, making them doing them a favor by
Right.
doing it, even if they're not realizing it, because they want to attach, they want to be addicted to that kind of like high that you get when you're in conflict with someone, especially someone who's very much into, wanting to be right. So it can be difficult in the sense where if the other person is not doing this work, but you're trying to do that work, this is where it can get difficult. But that is where you have to set boundaries eventually in your inner work and say like, no, this is how I choose to do things because I want to look at myself. I want to see where the charge is coming from. And so I want to be the wise person for myself, not for the other person. It's really for ourselves that we're doing this. And at the same time, when we are doing this for ourselves, automatically it helps the other person if they are ready to receive it. So it's about just looking again and looking at the reaction and then saying, okay, I just want to take some time for myself right now because I have to understand where this is coming from. And I don't want to continue into this energy that is going absolutely nowhere. It's just
Right.
bringing more,
Yes.
dysfunctional patterns.
Well, what I was going to mention to that, first of all, this is such an interesting topic. And I realized that most people, most of us live in this kind of behavior more often than we think. The
Mhm.
first thing that comes to mind is when we have, in traffic, and,
Yeah.
and so many, in general, I started thinking so many things can be avoided. We're
Yes.
talking things that, decisions that we made out of reaction that can have consequences later
Yes.
on, whether it's even where our family members, we just react and say things we shouldn't, so
Mhm.
you're right. So it is worth taking a look into how we do things,
Yeah.
how we
Absolutely.
conduct ourselves during
Yeah.
this times. Now, I'm sure you want your listeners to feel that connection to the content of your book. So let's talk about letter number one, for example. You speak about time not as something to manage, but something to transcend. That kind of hit me because you write something like, you must create a space for me, not time.
Mhm.
So can you expand on that for what does that mean to our listeners? What was that? What is that about?
So I think that a lot of people, most people struggle with time because they often lack time in their daily lives. They're so busy doing things,
Yes.
whatever situation that you're in. I think that everybody is in that kind of energy of lack of time or running after time always. And what the inner being is trying to say is that it's not demanding time from us. So a lot of people are going to say, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to reconnect to who I am. I don't have time for this because I have too much to do and blah, blah, blah. It's not so much about making more time, it's about making space for that. Like the inner being is kind of like your unconditional lover. It wants to be seen, by you so that it can help you. And it's not about making more time for it, but creating space in your life for it. So it's not about adding something again to your time schedule.
I
It's
mean,
about,
because the time is already there. I mean,
yes,
we
yeah,
as long as
exactly.
we're
Kind of
alive,
just an
there is time.
illusion. Yeah, exactly. The inner being is just wanting to say, like, there's no excuse to reconnect to yourself. And it's not because you don't have time that you can't make space for me. Like, it should be a priority. That space is there, absolutely. It's
Right.
just a matter of willingness to want to reconnect to that part of yourself. And
Yes.
again, making space is you can make that space in every moment of your life, whatever you're doing. So even if you're busy doing something, you can take that time and make that space to automatically be your authentic self in that moment. So this is pretty much what it was kind of like translating is like, I'm not demanding you to give me more time. I'm actually just wanting space. I want you to feel your space with me. So yeah,
Very
something like
good.
that.
Yeah. And your book is comprised of 21 letters, right?
Yeah.
And so there's letter two, the idea that emotional triggers, we talked a little bit about emotional triggers, perhaps, that they are actually mirrors, they're not your enemy. That was also
Mhm.
powerful.
Mhm.
I love that you write, no one is to be blamed for your triggers, as they are all mirrors of you. I mean, that makes sense. How can we begin to view our triggers with curiosity instead of shame, for example?
Yeah, so I was saying, everything outside of you can trigger you. But
Yes.
everything that is outside of you is actually just a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So when you're not aware of the chaos that is within you, you're going to be looking at the world, your reality, as very chaotic. You will feel like you can't, you know, you have a hard time just managing life in a way because you're not aware that inside of you is what is really needed to be managed by you in a sense. And also, you're not aware that you have this higher self that is wanting to help you co create this world with you. Because I feel like when we're so stuck into our egos, we feel like we're meant to just, create by ourselves. Everything has to be managed by us. And we forget that we do have this energy that is wanting to co-create with us all the time. So really what is mirroring you is everything that is outside of you, that is bringing you to have these patterns inside of you. Every time that, I'll give you an example. So let's say that you react to something. So you're reacting to something and you're creating another pattern inside of you. So that pattern will stay stuck within you until you take the time to look at it for what it is and you're ready to hold it and release it. And a lot of these patterns, they come from our childhood. So what we're doing when we're being adults is we're just continuing the patterns over and over again. And all of our reactions are really, they stem from these patterns that are inside of us. But we have people and circumstances that are reflecting these patterns inside of us. So I like to say, like, when you're even speaking to someone, you're speaking to yourself, really. You may be attracted to someone, you're actually attracted to your patterns. When there's like that pull and these triggers, it's not necessarily the person that you're attracted to, is that you're addicted to certain patterns that are also inside of them to show you who you are. So that is why we're always mirroring each other. We're always projecting each other's stuff on each other, right? So
Yes. That is
this is what,
actually incredibly, our brain works like that in a sense because it likes routine, it likes the known.
yeah.
Now, when we're talking about the unknown, you do right. And I was wondering if this has to do with the surrender, letting go of control. That is something that I think so many people, especially those who, and that are in the healing process or transition, they struggle with.
Yeah.
Why is the unknown so important to embrace?
Because there's absolutely nothing in the world that is known. Nothing
Right.
is real in a way that the only person that can put meaning to someone is you. If you don't put something, meaning to something, it will never mean anything to you. So the unknown is part of our lives, like our daily lives. We never know what is actually going to happen. And we think that we know everything with our egos, unfortunately, and that's why we suffer. And the unknown is uncomfortable because the ego wants to control. It wants to be certain about something and it wants to make sure that, the things in its life is going accordingly the way that it wants to happen. Life is life, and it unfolds the way that it's going to unfold and has nothing to do with you. It just is. So we need to step back again and look at our lives and say, there's absolutely nothing that is permanent outside of myself. Everything comes and goes, right? Relationships, you get into a relationship and then you don't know how long it's going to be, although your ego says, oh, I want you forever. But then you get attached to that and that ideals. It's always ideals of like, I know that this can stay in my life forever, but you have absolutely no idea where it could ever go. The person could die, the person could just leave you suddenly. That there's so much that, like, we absolutely don't really know anything in our lives. And from that perspective.
It
So
makes sense.
we
Yeah.
get comfortable with the coming and going of life. And that's what
Yes.
everything in our life comes and goes. So that is the unknown, basically. And it is uncomfortable at the beginning because you just want to hold on to things and people and make
Yes.
sure that they stay because that's your,
Your safe
security.
place?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's your safety. But the more that you get comfortable with the unknown,
The more you
with not
suffer.
knowing, the more you become comfortable with not knowing, the more you're freeing yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and this is just out of curiosity on my own self here. Besides, let's put it that way, besides the inner work that you had done that brought you to write this book, and perhaps prior to this, do you have did you read any authors or any? I just kind of want to know if you have like a school of thought, if you want to talk a little bit of that. Do you have any favorite author, anybody that you could? I
Yeah.
know that your style, perhaps it's very unique in a way because it's you. You explained at the beginning how this kind of came to you. But I want to understand if there is a prior something that inspired you, or an author perhaps.
Absolutely. I think that, the spiritual journey is like you get to learn from other masters, other
Yes.
teachers that are incredible teachers. And I've actually really been attracted all of my life to, well, all of my life from my 20s when I started my spiritual journey.
Yes.
The teachers that come and stay with me the most and that I continue to just listen to often are Michael Singer, and I really love Muji as well, and Michael Beckwith. They are 3 M's. That's how I always remember them. And it's funny because my real name is Michelle, so it just goes well. But these 3
Yes.
teachers, I have followed for a long time as well, Abraham Hicks. I really loved her for a long time. I still do. It's just that my energy was more attracted to peace in the last couple of years. And Michael Singer, Michael Beckwith, and also Muji, they represent that peace within that I feel and that simplicity as well. These teachers to me, they are very profound and they are very simple as well. So it's very yeah, I love them dearly, and I of course got inspired by them for a long time, and I still do today. So they help me tremendously with my higher consciousness and also all of the witness consciousness that I do on a daily basis. They are the go-tos for that.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, one of the things also I was thinking is, and what I also appreciate about your book is that it's not just a book to read, it is something to actually live. And I just wanted to kind of ask you, what are some daily practices or reminders that help you stay in alignment with your inner being?
I meditate every single day. So sometimes I'm going to do some guided meditations, but I really like to take the time and make the space to do silent meditations. Silent meditations are my go-to because it brings you back into the stillness, away from the noise, and get to really practice. This is why I practice every day and I get really good at being the witness consciousness in my daily lives and really being able to look at my reaction and everything. So, what I'm just going to suggest people to do is if you want to start on this journey of witness consciousness, you need to start with your own thoughts and you need to see how comfortable you are in your own presence, in stillness and silence. This is the beginning because if you can't even handle little noises around you while you're sitting down with your eyes closed for like 5 minutes, this is why you react so much to the outside world and you get bothered really, really quickly. But when you can sit down and observe and let these little sounds, even if it's like a ticking of a clock. I know people that freak out when they're listening to that ticking of the clock. Let's say they're in meditation, and it's really, really irritating them. That's really tiny.
Or even your own heartbeat.
Even the heartbeat can be something that they're uncomfortable with. Absolutely. So when you're starting this journey, you have to get to be comfortable with you alone for you to be able to now practice it outside of you with people and things. And like we were talking about traffic, it's incredible how we get triggered by someone that just cuts us off, you know, and we react really quickly. And then we stay with that for like another 30 minutes. And then we talk about that to like our coworkers when we go to
Mm-hmm.
work and we're like, oh my God, this asshole just cut me off and like blah, blah, blah. It almost caused an accident. And we stay in these stories. And this
Yes.
is what brings us to see that we are imprisoned by our minds. We're imprisoned by this ego mind that always wants to create stories and to create drama and just get on this high of like, I need to be dramatic right now and talk about that thing that irritated me and whatever. And so we waste so much energy with the mind.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. It takes so much out of us.
It
And it
takes
takes
so much.
also time that we could be perhaps putting into, bettering ourselves
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
serving others and so many other positive things.
absolutely. So if
Little
you're not
little things,
Yeah.
yes.
So if you're not able to do the little things with yourself and be okay with the silence within you, you're going to have conflict always with other people because if you can't even stand someone, cutting you off in traffic and letting go of that story, I'm not saying you can't react. I mean, it can be surprising. Someone just cuts
Yes.
you off and it scares you, but it's again looking at like, okay, he cut me off or someone just passed you. Some people get really frustrated by that. Like someone is
Hmm.
passing you, it's okay. He's the one who's in a hurry. Just let him
Let
go
them
and then
go.
let
Exactly.
go. And
Yes.
if you can't even do that, like I mean, this is why it's difficult after that with your spouses and your kids. Like the kids, they irritate you really quickly because you don't have control with your own self. You have a lack of control with yourself. right? So my practices, they are always the first thing I do in the morning is I meditate. I do that meditation, silent meditation. It can be for an hour, it can be for 40 minutes. I don't do under 40 minutes, I would say. And then from there, it's like I used to do other things for practices, but I seriously practice every day with all of the things that are happening outside of me. And I just continue to look at them. So that's my practice. I look at the mind. That's my biggest practice.
Absolutely.
Look at the mind.
And besides that, for those listening who perhaps might be going through a hard time, maybe they feel disconnected or lost,
Yeah.
what would your inner being say to them right now?
Let yourself feel everything and hold space for the energy that your inner child is experiencing right now, because big chances are that this is what's being triggered. Whatever it is, if you're facing a separation, if you're losing someone, there is something inside of you that needs to be looked at. It's not about the other person. Yes, it is unpleasant and it's uncomfortable, but it's important to go and feel it completely and not suppress it again. And then while you are looking at it, don't be hard on yourself. You're not, you have to go through that emotion. You have to go look at it, but you also have to release it. So the emotions that you're feeling and the struggles that you're going through, they need to get out of your system. And so I would say, of course, there are other techniques. Like I've done breath work for a long time to when I was in my healing process, and that really helped me to release a lot of energy, a lot of emotions like that. So, but if you're not ready to do that just yet, I would say just be gentle on yourself and start looking at the emotions and really trying to see where did you feel that before in your life and what triggered it. And then, yeah, it's a process, but it's a baby step that you have to do. And then absolutely, I mean, you can start getting help. There's so much help out there, but connecting to your higher self is simple. It is simple. If you really just want to do that, that is enough. But you have to have that willpower. Even though you're struggling and you're hurting really, really badly, your higher self is there to really just speak to you, but you got to make space for it. You have to sit down, be uncomfortable, and listen to it. What does it want to tell you, even if it's
Absolutely.
painful? Yeah.
Yes. Ellie, what is next for you as far as, I mean, I know you just the book just came out in August. Are you just focusing now and like, talking about this particular book? Are you thinking
Yeah.
about writing another book in the future? Tell me a little bit about what are you doing, because I see that you're very active in social media and tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I am writing a second book right now, although taking my time a lot more for that book because it is, first of all, I don't have the same time that I I usually have to write, and I want to just receive that book just slower. I'm hearing from my higher self that this is going to be unfolding more slowly than the first one. There's less of an urgency in a way. The second book is practicing witness consciousness. It's all about practicing with witness consciousness. So it has to be as well, like I feel like the time will be ready. For those who are ready, they're going to be able to receive it in that time. But it's not, I don't feel a rush to bring that book out right now. So I'm still focusing on the first one. Actually recently decided to organize some retreats to go with the book. So we'll be doing some silent retreats because again, it's all about going inside and having that space, making that space to be able to integrate these letters. So the letters, they are triggering, as you've seen. They can be provocative and they are also soothing and loving. But I think that when you're in the right environment to really go through them, you can really integrate them better. So yeah, the next step is to start doing these beautiful retreats and inviting people to be in a peaceful container to go through a couple of letters and studying the letters together and doing the work. So,
So how can listeners connect with you and tell me us about where they can find your book and all about that?
Sure. So they can go on my website at lettersbyellie.com. They will find the book there. They can find the book as well on amazon.com.ca.uk. And there's also a version, an audio version that you can get on Audible of the book, which is another really beautiful experience of the letters. And other than that, yeah, they can find me on my social media, Facebook, Instagram. I am on LinkedIn, but I'm mostly on social book right now. So yeah.
They just find you by your name, right? Ellie.
Yeah, Ellie Laliberté. Exactly.
Okay.
They'll find me right away for sure.
Ellie La Libertad,
La
like
liberté.
freedom. La
Yeah,
Libertad, but in Spanish, La Libertad,
yeah.
freedom.
Freedom. Exactly.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Ellie, this has been such an soul nourishing conversation. Thank you so much for showing us that our greatest guide actually it's already within us.
Yeah.
I think your book is a true companion for anyone on the path of healing, truth, and inner freedom, like your last name. So
Absolutely.
I want to thank all our listeners. Again, you can connect with Ellie and explore her work at lettersbyellie.com. And of course, you can also find links to her personalized coaching and other resources there. And I will say it again, start with the first three letters and let them unfold something inside of you because they will. As always, thank you for joining me on the Life Unscripted podcast with Rosabel. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and most importantly, stay connected to your inner being. Until next time, thank you, Ellie.
Thank you so much.